PhD in Progress, Episode 3. This week, we continue our discussion on how to get the most out of grad school to improve your career search and what this has meant in our own experience. Let's go!
No, you don't. All you need is to get fucking excited. Jason, get excited. Let's go. No clapping. No clapping in people's faces. Welcome back to the
We're
PhD.
just testing the sound.
You ruined my...
She was in the groove.
Oh, God, yeah. I'm
Clap in her face. She
I'm
likes
so
it.
sorry. I won't slap. I won't.
God.
Okay.
Whatever.
Okay.
Welcome back to the PhD in Progress podcast. I'm Abigail.
I'm Nikhil.
And I'm Jason.
So last week, we interviewed Dr. Fatima Williams-Castro.
And boy, what an interview. Let me tell you, that interviewer, awesome.
Very attractive also. He was very attractive.
And funny.
Nice voice.
It's the thing you miss out from this audio format is seeing Jason's beautiful face.
Video podcast soon. Ha.
It sounds like a lot
What
of
could
work.
possibly go wrong?
Yeah. No,
Anyway, we thought that Dr. Williams-Castro raised a lot of great points, and we wanted to delve a little deeper into some of them today. So we're going to discuss a lot of last week's interview from our points of view with some actionable items that you can do to help push your own career search forward.
And not just actionable items, but also some beautiful anecdata.
Anecdata are our favorite.
Anecdata.
Anecdata.
Yes.
Never heard that before.
Yeah, it's not data, it's an anecdote. But it's given as an example in a way that makes it sort of be like data.
Like one time I did this experiment and got this result, but
Yeah.
it didn't actually happen.
And then you publish it in Science.
Yeah. Done that. No, not true. Not in science.
Okay.
Okay.
All right,
Okay.
so let's just jump right in. One of the things that Dr. Castro talked about was this idea of career exploration. So, Jason, what does that mean to you? What does it mean to explore careers?
So I think for us, it's one of those deals where we've been in academia for so long and seen pretty much what academia has to offer us. And so, at least for people who are pursuing their PhDs, it's important to look outside of the walls of their school or their institution and see what other types of jobs there are.
Or even outside their department, right? Here you have an option. We have a policy school, a government school, school of public policy, where people who are interested in science policy, for example, could do a certificate in policy. If you're thinking about a career in government, which I was briefly, it might behoove you to go, walk across campus and sit in on a class and see if you would want to shoot yourself in the head if you ended up with a government job, and figure out whether you actually like that or not.
In the same vein, there's also resources on most college campuses that deal specifically with teaching. So if you see yourself, or if you really enjoy being a TA or teaching, then you can go to whatever teaching and learning center there might be on your campus and see if you can get involved in whatever programming they might have, or learn more about teaching careers in general within the academy, and also, if you want to go into high school teaching or community college teaching, there's a lot of options out there for those types of careers.
But what if you want to kind of do something solo and go out on your own, or maybe you don't have the particular resources at your school or institution to do this? How can you just start finding different careers? And
That's what the internet is for.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think so.
I think
Heard otherwise in Avenue Q, but we won't go there.
there's sort of two components to that. One is learning about what's out there, which is obviously what the internet is good for. But the other, and I guess less addressed part of this whole thing is figuring out what the heck you want to do. Like trying to learn about your own likes and dislikes and work style and fit is kind of a difficult thing to navigate. So I don't know. What do you guys think about how to go about that?
I think that the timing issue particularly is important. This is something you should start to think about sooner than later, because as someone who is currently finishing her PhD, I can tell you that this last year is a difficult time to also be trying to find a job. Or, let's say, deciding what kind of job to do and then trying to make the connections to get that kind of job while also wrapping up your research, writing your dissertation, maybe organizing a move across the country, whatever you've got going on. It's like finding a job is like a full-time job.
Yeah. You definitely want to know what type of area or industry or position you want to aim for when you are starting your first or your last year.
Before. I think before.
Well, but you want to have it lined up by your last year, right? And I don't think that it really depends on the type of job you're trying to get. You might not be able to go find that job and have it ready like a year and a half in advance. Some places, like I'm looking outside of academia right now, but it's hard for companies to be like, oh, Jason, we'll offer you a job, even though you won't be graduating.
Whenever you're done, whenever that is.
Unless you do. Jason at PhDinprogress.com.
So the time frame is about 6 months to a year, I think is what I've anecdotally heard from people who've done this.
What, for looking? For real?
No,
or for...
in terms of the time it takes from starting to search seriously to the time you might actually get something.
A job.
A job, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Right.
I think it varies widely by field, of course. The other thing is, if you're close to done, a job can give you leverage to get out, right? If you have a job with a start date, then you have an end date as well.
That's a really good point. I feel like a lot of advisors really like senior grad students because they know a lot of stuff and they've been really, instrumental in helping run the lab and mentor other students. And so, they don't want to see you go. And so having that kind of leverage can be really helpful sometimes.
So how do you do this career exploration thing?
So there are probably many tools to be able to start doing, this exploration where you crawl out of your lab or the library you've been in for a few years and see the light of the actual sun.
And you shrink back away from it because it's so bright.
What is this real world?
But maybe we can talk a little bit about what we've done, and let's see if it matches with Fatima PhD career coach and her advice. So I found a lot of success being on LinkedIn and just finding people who I might have had a connection with who seemed to have really awesome or different career paths. One person in particular I just emailed. He was totally fine with talking to me for 30 minutes on the phone. And this led to a great networking opportunity for me in New York, and a great roundtable conversation with all these CEOs of different healthcare companies, and I thought that was amazing, just because people are willing to help you so much that you can reach out to them and they will put you in contact with whoever.
So what does this person do, and how does that align with your interests?
Yeah, so...
Or does this violate your confidentiality agreement?
I didn't sign anything, but in short, he helps run a healthcare innovation center in a major city, and he's been really helpful for connecting me with many people. Even though we don't talk that often, and I wouldn't call him a mentor really, but he's been totally willing to help just put my name out there if he saw anything that might seem interesting to me. He might just send it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Were you nervous about cold emailing him?
A little bit, but I'd also done online dating, and so...
So that was really good practice
so it
for
was
getting a job.
Good practice. Good practice.
Get on OkCupid, guys.
Yeah. Hi, Jackie.
What about you, Nikhil?
I think beyond LinkedIn is a great resource because you can kind of be creepy and stalk people and see not only, what are they doing now, but also look at their trajectory, so what they did to get to where they are that day, so you can look at what education they have, what other experience they have. And that's really useful. You can kind of get a feel and average across a number of people who do what you may want to do, and see what kind of backgrounds they have and what they've been doing with their careers. In addition to that, I think another great resource is Twitter. It sounds a little bit counterintuitive. It's a social networking or social media site
Filled with 12-year-olds.
Yeah, and 140 character limit. How deep can you really go? Well,
PhD podcast.
Yeah. Well, Twitter is great because it allows you to follow certain individuals, and you get real-time content from the people who you might be interested in eventually becoming one day.
Does that give you a better sense of their day-to-day lives then? Like what it would be like to really live that job? Because I have a feeling people on Twitter often present the best, most glamorous face.
I don't think people are micro-blogging about their own experiences, but it's more about sharing content. Mm-hmm. And so, for me, the most valuable part about being on Twitter is reading about what other people are posting that's relevant to them. Especially, for example, so I'm interested in the biomedical engineering, medical device field, and there are a number of companies and individuals who post new and exciting devices or FDA regulations or rules, and sort of it's a great way to stay abreast of the current state of affairs in a given field.
And that's helping you also develop a shared vocabulary for the field you want to be in, so that when you meet these people, you have something to talk about because you've read all these articles.
Yeah, exactly. Vocabulary is really important because there are a lot of concepts that you learn in academia that have a particular word for them, and then you go out into the business world and they call it something completely different, but it's actually the same thing. And so to learn what this common language is between what you're doing now and what field you might want to end up in is a really important thing to do early and often.
I was pointed actually by one of my thesis committee members toward one of her former students who has the kind of job that I want. So I would like to get a job at a small liberal arts college, a place where I can balance both teaching and research. And I made appointments with all of my thesis committee members early this year, well before my thesis committee meeting, to sit down with them and talk about what I should do with my life. And I felt like this would be good to both prime them for the idea that I was going to be done, and also to pick their brains because they know me pretty well and they are living in academia. And since I would like to stay in the academy but in a different context, I thought that might be good. And actually, one of my committee members said, who you should talk to is this former student of mine who's now at, this school, whatever school it was. And I'll email her right now and see if she can set up a phone date with you. And I talked to this woman for an hour on the phone about how she got her job, what she likes about it, what she doesn't like about it, how best I could position myself to be competitive for that kind of job in the long run. And she suggested actually one of her classmates, who's one of my advisor's former students, who also has a job at an institution much like the one that I would like to be at eventually, and put me in touch with her. And I met with her at a conference, and we had coffee and talked about what she likes about her job and what she doesn't like and how she got there and what I could do. And so both of them were, again, very open, very willing to talk to me, very willing to go, take steps to advance my career path, and really willing to help. So if you can find someone who has what you want, for the most part, I think it's true that they'll be willing to help you follow in their footsteps. And
there's kind of the analogous version of this where you find the company that's doing what you might want to do, or, having the same interests that you have. And it might not be as simple as just talking to one person, but I think LinkedIn is a good tool for this, where you can find the company and find the people who work there, and maybe you might have a mutual friend who can introduce you. On LinkedIn, you have to either know the person directly or be closely related to them career-wise, or you have to have a friend who can link you to this person, so a mutual friend. And that's what helps build really good confidence among the people on LinkedIn. So whoever you're talking to, you're pretty sure has some kind of relevance to you and isn't just some person way off just trying to scheme you somehow.
Right, it's the several degrees of separation.
Yeah, it makes you feel comfortable, and it really helps build relationships between people.
Yeah.
So
I think one of the things that's useful about doing this kind of career exploration is that it can help you figure out what skills you would need in the kind of job that you would like. So one of the things we wanted to talk about from the interview was the difference between how you're defined in academia and how you're defined in the quote-unquote real world.
Right. And I think the crux of this distinction is that in academia, people care more about what you study. So your topic of research, like what is your dissertation about? What is the project that you're working on? What does your lab do? What do you get funded for? Whereas in the real world, people care more about what you can bring to the table. So what are the skills that you have? And so one of the things that you can try to do as a graduate student is reframe your whole graduate education in terms of developing skills that are useful not just for your research, but also for more broadly to any problem in the real world.
And you're going to get that. I mean, that's the critical thinking skills you're developing in grad school. But additionally, you might learn some things like statistics or Python, which we were discussing earlier. Jason and I both really wish we had learned in grad school.
No, seriously, no matter who you are, go learn how to program in some language. It doesn't matter what language.
Yeah.
Go learn to program, because that will help you no matter what you do.
No matter what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the internet age. You need to know how to interact with computers, and there's a language, and that's what programming is. Even if you don't end up doing programming full time, just understanding what it is and how to talk to other people who may be programmers is a really essential skill.
Yeah. So that's a skill. You also learn skills like communication, public speaking, writing clearly to a diverse audience, diverse audiences, and to think about those skills too. I think some programs are better at training you in those than others. We, for example, don't do a lot of writing, I don't think, until the very end. But we do a lot of speaking. So I think most of the people who come out of our program give pretty good talks and are pretty good about talking about their research. It varies widely. Our lab is really good, for example. But not everyone likes to do that either.
To me, one of the most important skills I've learned is this idea of managing up. So a lot of what you do in academia is deal with people who have a lot more power and influence than you, whether it's a postdoc in your lab or a professor or your committee or even like a dean or some department chair. The point is you have to deal with all these people who are way higher up in the hierarchy than you are. And so the idea of managing up is that, at the end of the day, you need them to do something for you on your behalf. And you learn a couple of tricks that will help you achieve those goals.
For example, this week I gave my advisor a to-do list, and the top of it said, to do for Abigail's mental health. And it was divided in two categories. The first was as soon as possible, and that had 2 items. And the next one was soon, which had 2 or 3 items. And it's because I'm finishing up. I need him to write some letters and read some drafts that he's been sitting on and things like that. But because I gave him this piece of paper with this list of things that said at the top I needed him to do them for my mental health, he laughed, and then he did everything on the list in a day and a half.
Success.
I know. It was such a great thing. I'm going to make him another one next week, I think.
That's a good idea.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it was really successful. More successful than I expected.
Did you have to bribe it all with cookies or something?
And it's because he left and then he was going away, and I was frustrated that my needs had not been met, and I was like, all right, well, he's got a lot to do. Maybe I just need to write it down for him all in one place. I need you to do these things for me. And sometimes being clear about that, I think, is really what you need to do. To say, I need the following to get done. Please do this for me.
And as an aside, doesn't that really speak to the relationship between
the power differential?
The mentor and the student. Wow. I need you to do this for my mental health. If you really cared, you would do this.
Because I'm going crazy right now, because I'm writing my dissertation and doing other things, and I need you to do these things so that I'm not worried about them. I'm worried about other things.
I'm glad it worked. It's a great idea.
I think another really effective strategy is to sort of plant ideas in
that's a good one.
Your advisor's head. So I think a lot of times the barrier to them doing things is not that it's a bad idea, but it's that they want to feel like they've thought of it themselves.
Or it's foreign, right? So it needs to incubate for a little while.
That's right. So, repetition is really effective. And also, showing balancing the right amount of deference. So, giving them the opportunity to, reflect the idea back at you as if it was something that came from them. And I think that's really effective.
I can't speak to having that problems because my boss is perfect. No, I can't. No, I love my boss.
She doesn't listen to this.
No, I love my boss too.
I love my boss, as we all love our bosses. And I think for me, one of the problems is that there's so much going on for my boss that maybe it's not the top of her mind like it is the
I
top
think
of
that's
my
a
mind.
big part of it.
And it's not so much that she needs to be the one in charge. It's more that she's only like so many hours in a day, as we all do, and I have my main things I have to take care of.
And you care a lot about the things you have to take care of.
I do care a lot.
And she cares less than you do.
Yes.
She still cares.
Which is fine, because I care less about some of her stuff.
It's your job to care more about your things.
You have to.
It's true.
Everyone has to be their own advocate and personal assistant and all these other things.
And so sometimes, making a list, or to sort of build on what Nikhil said, I have used repetition as well. I've just talked about things as if they were happening until they happened. That's a strategy I actually also use with my husband, where I say, well, and then we're going to go away for the weekend in July.
You, the parallels between a mentor and...
It's not that different than, training mice or dogs or...
But you just tell them that, and then when this happens, when this happens. And then when I defend in May, when you defend in May and then you're going to leave. Okay, well, that's how that's going to go. So you
have like
talk
one of
about
those
it.
black and white swirly things in the background?
I have an app on my phone that I use.
Didn't they publish this in a book called like The Secret or something, where it's like you just keep
that's
affirming?
Positive thinking. I think it's supposed to just be positive thinking.
But isn't graduating a positive thing? And the more you repeat it, like the more it's likely to happen.
The more times you graduate, the more likely it's...
Maybe, but I think if you talk about things as if they're true, things that you want as if they're going to happen, that helps them become real to the people around you.
That's true, because the people around you have more power.
And also, they're not paying attention.
Yeah.
So you might have had that conversation and they don't remember.
It's absolutely true. One of the things you said in the first episode that really, you kind of said it in passing, but it's actually really important, is keeping a good lab notebook, or more generally, organization. Like, when you look back upon your graduate career and you can't find some piece of data that you know is, like, really important, that's really frustrating. So... stay organized, goddammit.
Yeah, you first years listening to this.
Yeah, you can do better than we did.
Yes.
You can. And you
should. And it's not...
I know.
It's more effort to try to figure out where that stuff went now than to have put it in the right place in the first place.
Yeah. Do it right the first time.
It's worth... Alright, Jason, in the past, I'm telling you this right now, it's worth missing that shuttle back to your apartment and having to walk the 20 minutes if you have to write down those extra notes at the end of the day when you're like packing up and you're so sad and so hungry because your experiment didn't work. It's worth remembering why that experiment didn't work, and so you don't do it the next time. Okay? Love you too.
Okay, good talk. Mm-hmm. Good talk, Jason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We get along well.
In terms of other skills, we've talked about dealing with advisors, we've talked about things you can learn yourself, like how to be a better programmer. We talk about teaching at all, like how to...
A little bit,
yeah. One of the things I'm most grateful for in my own graduate experience is I had the unique opportunity to directly manage other people, and I don't mean like undergraduates or other graduate students. I was working on a project where we hired contractors to do a very particular kind of nanofabrication. And my advisor didn't seem very interested in the nitty-gritty details, and so I sort of offered to take the lead on the project and manage the sort of high-level design elements of it, and also give our contractor instructions. And so for me, this has been a really valuable learning experience, and I think it translates really well to the non-academic world, where you may be working with a bigger team.
I happen to know for a fact that we've all gone beyond our lab and classrooms to obtain different skills in different settings. So, Abigail, do you want to talk about one of your experiences? Perhaps with some editing, maybe?
Yeah, I have a lot of side projects. One of them is that I copy edit science manuscripts submitted by ESL researchers. So I'm a contractor for a firm called American Journal Experts, and they send me manuscripts, and I put in commas, and I fix verb tenses, and they're mostly biology papers, but sometimes I'll get chemistry or engineering or geosciences or something.
Which is why she's not afraid to edit my grammar in real time on this podcast.
In real time on the air. I actually have been holding back.
Oh.
And you get authorship, right?
I don't get authorship.
Go for it. Okay.
However, I do get money, and I get experience, which has actually helped me. It helped me get a second interview for a sort of high-level editing job I applied for this year. I really enjoy it for a couple of reasons. One is that I get to read about things I would never choose to read about, and some of them are really strange and interesting. You know, there's a veterinary science article about a dog with a rare bacterial infection. There's one about tick species in Africa and whether their mitochondrial DNA have anything to do with the color that they are. I mean, really stuff that I would not read on purpose, but that has been fun for me to read about. So I'm always learning, which I like, and I've thought about getting a job in writing or publishing. And so this is good experience for that, and I'll probably start doing it again when I finish my dissertation. I'm on hold now. If I have any writing projects, they're going to be my own, not someone else's. But I've always been the person who has edited other people's things. They always give me their things to read, their proposals, their grant applications, things like that. Can you proofread this for me? And that's always been something I have done. And so
now you'll say, not unless you give me $10.
And now I'll say, make it worth my while.
Yeah. I think, based on all this conversation we've been having, you really seem to enjoy, addressing other people's problems and helping them.
I do. And
so do you find the satisfaction comes from, helping the other people, or is it the work itself? What is it about that you really enjoy?
Well, in person, I like helping other people. So I like helping the people in my lab polish up their letters of application for things, right? Their cover letters and stuff. I enjoy doing that because I like them and I want them to succeed, and I like that part. The editing, I like helping people. I also really have always been sort of a language nerd, and so for me, it's actually enjoyable to think about what this author must mean, in this disaster of a sentence, and then clean it up to help them communicate their science. Because we're opening doors for people in a way by doing this, but I also get satisfaction from the work. It's true. I don't know if I would copy edit full time, but it has given me some flexibility because I could, if I didn't find a job, if I hadn't found a job, I could up my paper load. I could edit a lot and probably live on that if I wanted to. It would be pretty boring. I need to get a treadmill desk or something because it would be just sitting in front of my laptop all day.
Treadmill desk?
Yeah, treadmill desk.
What is that?
The newest and coolest thing. Imagine
it's
a
like
desk.
a standing desk, only you have a treadmill. So sitting is really bad for you. I say as the three of us are sitting. Sitting leads to a lot of health problems and also makes you sleepy. And so a lot of people really have found that walking slowly while working is much better for both their health and their mental well-being. So if I were going to have a real-life desk job, I would want a treadmill desk. Yeah. I'm
pretty cool.
Pretty serious about that. You can make your own from IKEA and Craigslist for a couple $100. But you need to have space, which in our New York City apartment we don't have. So that's something I've done to explore a different career possibility, and it's been really fun for me. Jason, what sorts of things have you done?
So one of the most recent things I've done is to join a group called Cree Scouter, and I've talked to Nikhil about this.
I got that email and I thought it was spam.
No way.
I thought it was like a total fakey thing.
It's actually a kind of cool group. So what they do is...
It's legit, though.
It is legit.
Have you done any projects for Cree Scouter?
I am finishing up my first one right now.
Okay.
Just in time. Actually, the last presentation for this is the day before my committee meeting, which is on Wednesday.
Good luck.
Cutting a little close. A very busy week between all this stuff. But anyway, Cree Scouter is a company that basically gathers PhD students from all different schools and disciplines. And what they're really looking for there are students who have good research skills. And they gather the students and put them on projects for different companies. So the company, Cree Scouter, has clients that might be manufacturing companies or pharmaceutical companies, some type of company that wants either more information about a certain product or a landscape of what different types of technologies there are already or have been. And so they
So information gathering.
Exactly. So they get small groups of graduate students to participate in these projects. And so it's kind of like a mini consulting type gig where you have to work with a couple other students, but...
Are they here? So do you mean
no, so we do this all remotely. So all through telephone conferences and emailing PowerPoint slides and stuff like that.
Are your project requirements like really specific? Like, are they looking for like a broad background on a particular area, or are they looking for you to evaluate like one technology and see how feasible it is?
That's really per client. It really differs per client. So, I mean, I'm on my first project, so I can't really tell too much about what the projects are like in general. And from what I've heard, the project I'm doing right now is slightly different than the others. So right now I'm taking like a landscape of, I can't really say exactly what it is.
A top secret subject.
Top secret subject for a big national brand, which has been really awesome to just be able to talk to people from it. So it's kind of cool. But taking a landscape of some sort of technology there and seeing what the deal is and what they can do. And they ask for specifically something that I'm familiar with. So it's kind of nice so I can kind of delve deep into it and provide some kind of value to them.
This is about video games.
No. Why would you assume that's it? But yeah, it's been kind of great because part of me has always considered going to consulting of some type, and I'm sure I will at some point in my career. And this has been a great intro into it.
So in addition to learning these skills, you probably also learned something about working with a remote team. Right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've always worked with like lab groups, and so, and actually I've tended to be the one who's in charge of the lab groups. And so being someone who, first of all, is on his first project, but somehow ended up having to take a leadership role to begin with, because the area I was so familiar with and my other teammates weren't so much. That and being part of a team who I know for a fact one of us is in California, I'm in New Jersey, one's in the UK.
Didn't know. People you
we don't
didn't know before, right? Strangers.
And we all kind of have to pretend like we've been working together because this thing's only 6 weeks long, and then it's the end, right? And then we kind of dissolve, and maybe we'll be on the same project next time.
One of the things that I've heard about academia versus non-academia is that in academia, time is the independent variable, and in non-academia, time is the dependent variable.
Yeah.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. And so the fact that you have a deadline is really interesting. Like, have you ever had a deadline for your research? Has your advisor ever said, do this by this time or else?
No.
Do you feel like your lab experiences have been as collaborative as this particular project?
That's a really good question, because parts of it, yes, but you're right. I think it's
who's responsible at the end of the day? Are you the sole bearer of responsibility, or is it your team?
No, it's the team. It is definitely the team.
But for your lab research, you're the one who shoulders all of the responsibility for your individual project. Right?
That's
so this
true.
is one of these big differences here.
Yeah, but I think that doesn't necessarily speak to just non-academic or different types of careers.
No, absolutely right. But
yeah, but it is a different type of experience, and that's true.
Right, it's the idea is that you're seeking out something new and different from what you're experiencing in your graduate training, right? And so this is a good opportunity for that.
I think it's been helping so far with just what I can expect from different types of careers, or what I could imagine that I might be experiencing later on.
And you maybe discovered that you had skills that you didn't know you had before.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes I think we find that we are perfectly capable of doing something that we didn't know that we could do, or didn't know that someone would ask us to do, because actually you're probably a fairly competent person generally, or you wouldn't have gotten this far.
Or almost worse, figuring out you don't have the skill you thought you did, which I think is a reality for many people. At least I've had times where I thought I could do something at a certain level when I couldn't, but it's only because I hadn't tried at that level. I assumed I could do something just because, most people can do this and whatever. And then
Do you have an example?
Yeah.
I need some anecdata.
Yeah. So one of these things for me is actually public speaking, and I'm not a great public speaker, as you can tell from here where I'm lovely, but this is after many years of practice in radio.
Okay. 2 beers and like 5 whiskeys.
But earlier on, like years ago, I had this talk I had to give, and I thought I was ready, and I prepared in a certain way, and it turned out that way was not the best way for me to prepare for that type of talk I had to give.
But you'd never done it before, so you didn't know.
I hadn't prepared in that way for the type of talk. Yes. I mean, this was like a longer format talk, and it was a more formal talk, and by the time...
So what specifically about, like, how would you have prepared differently knowing what you know now? I
would have done more practices in front of people. At least people I didn't know well, if I had the ability to. Because the people I know really well, I can just... I don't know, it's not like giving a practice talk, really.
You don't feel the same discomfort.
Yeah.
Well, and it's easy to say, oh, well, I'll do this better. I'm going to talk about this. Like, when I practice a talk, I usually look at the slides, and the first time through, I say, okay, and then on this slide, I'm going to talk about this. But you don't actually say, I'm going to talk about this when you're giving a talk. So you need to figure out what the words are for talking about this. Mm-hmm. And that means usually saying it out loud for real. Like it's real. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Practice makes perfect.
Practice makes perfect.
Well, I think in general, you may think of a PhD as being really depth-oriented, as in, learning everything there is to know about a particular topic, and even further than that, finding out something new about it. But in reality, the skills that you learn are really broad. You learn not just how to do research, but also how to communicate it, how to talk to other people about it, how to deal with other people, how to work in teams, how to work with a lab, how to teach people.
But on the flip side of that, though, it's not just assumed, or it's not just acquired by obtaining your PhD. Not in all cases do you have the ability to do all this teaching and mentoring, but you have to set out to do it. You have to be really intentional in obtaining these skills, which something I wish I knew a little earlier. If I would have been a bit more intentional in my second and third years.
You would have learned Python.
I would have learned Python.
Me too.
Right.
I might have graduated by now.
How many students learn too late that they need to ask their advisor early and often for feedback? Mm-hmm. That's really important. Your advisor is not gonna go out of their way to help you unless you ask them.
Or they might.
They might. Some are. Some aren't.
But ask.
Some people here might have had different experiences than others.
You need to ask for what you need.
Yeah.
That's for sure. And learn what it is that you need.
Learn to identify what you need. Yeah. That's important.
Learn to learn. Thanks for listening, and thanks to my lovely co-hosts, Nikhil and Abigail. We've received a ton of great feedback from Reddit and other online friends already, and we really appreciate it. You too can help us shape the future of this show by connecting with us on Twitter @PhD Podcast. Leaving reviews in the iTunes Store really boosts our visibility too. All this information can be found at phdinprogress.com.
That's what the internet is for.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.